Hey sweet friends! Welcome back to my cozy corner of the internet. Today's video is extra special because I'm inviting you into a world where nostalgia meets nature, where old school charm and countryside romance come together. That's right, we're going full Farmcore and not just any kind. This time it's infused with the sweetest touches of my granny's vintage treasures. Every piece you'll see has a story, a past, and now thanks to this refresh, a brand new place in my home. Let's take this sentimental journey together. Before we dive into the styling, let's talk about what Farmcore really means. Picture wildflowers on the windowsill, hand-sewn linens, antique teacups, and layers of love worn into every corner. Farmcore is about embracing the simplicity of rural life while layering in a soft, romantic aesthetic. Think faded florals, distressed woods, handmade quilts, and tones pulled straight from an old meadow. It's cozy, rustic, and nostalgic, and it perfectly matches the vibe of Granny's vintage treasures, which I've lovingly incorporated throughout my space. When I first opened my grandmother's old steamer trunk, it felt like stepping into a time capsule. Inside were her hand-embroidered napkins, faded floral aprons, chipped enamel bowls, and handwritten recipe cards from the 1940s. These weren't just things. They were memories woven into fabric and ceramic, evidence of a life well lived. I knew instantly I wanted to give these items a new home in my space, not as museum pieces, but as functional, beautiful decor elements that embody her spirit. Granny's collection was filled with soft pinks, dusty blues, faded yellows, and mossy greens, tones that felt plucked from a blooming wildflower field. I took inspiration from those hues and built my Farmcore color palette around them. Muted tones are key here. Nothing too bold or stark, just comforting, earthy shades with a hint of time-worn romance. I brought these into the space through vintage curtains, tablecloths, painted furniture, and even small pottery pieces. Let's begin at the entryway, a small nook I wanted to turn into a warm embrace. I used Granny's floral apron as a curtain for the lower shoe cabinet, tying it with lace ribbon. Above, I framed one of her old botanical prints and hung her straw sun hat on the wall. A tiny enamel basin holds dried lavender, and an antique rug in rose tones greets guests with charm. It's a perfect soft start to what's ahead, and it instantly sets the tone for the home. The heart of the home is the living room, and I've turned it into a little Farmcore haven. The vintage quilt Granny made, complete with mismatched floral patches, is now the centerpiece on the back of my thrifted white slip-covered sofa. Old lace doilies act as soft coasters on the coffee table, and her needlepoint pillows now live here, each one like a stitched love letter. Every corner tells a story, and every texture feels like a hug from the past. If there's one thing Granny knew how to do, it was pattern mixing. In this space, I layered gingham, tiny florals, and soft ticking stripes. A key to making it work? Keep everything in a muted palette so nothing overwhelms the eye. I use floral curtains with faded pink and blue roses, paired with plaid pillows in similar tones. Her crocheted throws draped over the chair add softness and a handmade touch. It's a dance of pattern and warmth that only vintage can bring. This was my favorite room to style. The kitchen is where Granny's presence is most strongly felt. Her handwritten recipes are now framed and displayed above the stove, and her enamel kettle sits proudly on display. I used her floral tins for storage and stacked her old mismatched plates in open shelves for that open farmhouse feel. A checkered tablecloth, a hand-sewn tea towel, and her vintage egg basket filled with faux farm eggs bring the space to life. Shelf styling is all about balance and storytelling. I used a mix of Granny's glassware, thrifted farmhouse finds, and dried botanicals to create cozy little vignettes. Her mason jars now hold wooden spoons and herbs, while her chipped teacups cradle tiny succulents. I even turned one of her old cookie tins into a planter. The shelves now feel less like storage and more like an invitation into another time. One little nook in my dining room has become a reading and tea corner. I styled it with Granny's antique tea cart, complete with her teacups, lace runner, and a tiny glass sugar bowl. An old spindleback chair sits beside it, now topped with a floral cushion she once made. I added a tiny shelf above for her well-loved poetry books. This is where I sit to journal or sip my morning tea, and it's truly the coziest corner in the house. Moving into the bedroom, I leaned into the floral romance of Farmcore. The bed is dressed in one of Granny's old chenille bedspreads layered with lace-trimmed pillowcases and a rosebud quilt. I framed one of her old linen handkerchiefs and hung it above the headboard. The nightstand features a dainty floral lamp I thrifted, topped with her brass alarm clock and a tiny bouquet of dried wildflowers. It's dreamy, soft, and full of vintage love. I wanted to preserve some of Granny's favorite wardrobe pieces in a creative way. So I hung one of her cotton house dresses and embroidered cardigans on pretty wooden hangers, displaying them like soft art in the hallway. They bring color, texture, and a touch of her daily life into the space. Every time I pass by, I'm reminded of her gentle presence, her love for handmade garments, and the charm in everyday beauty. Though this is an indoor tour, I couldn't leave out the garden-inspired touches. Granny adored gardening, and I brought that theme inside using floral motifs, potted herbs on windowsills, and botanical prints in wooden frames. I even used her old watering can as a vase for fresh-cut blooms. These touches connect the indoor space to the natural world, a key element of Farmcore, and remind me of her love for nature's quiet magic. Even the bathroom got a little Farmcore makeover. I used one of Granny's floral scarves as a window valance and placed her milk glass perfume bottles on a wooden tray. A crocheted bath mat, a hanging wall basket with dried eucalyptus, and her old mirror now framed in white paint turned this tiny room into a gentle, airy escape. Even the smallest spaces deserve some vintage love. Granny was a maker through and through, and I've carved out a space in her honor. In the corner of my office, I set up a tiny vintage desk with her embroidery hoops, antique scissors, and spools of thread on display. Her wooden sewing box sits proudly underneath. It's both functional and decorative, and it reminds me daily of the beautiful things that come from our hands and hearts. While much of the styling features Granny's pieces, I also layered in thrifted finds that harmonize with her collection. I found an antique mirror, chipped floral plates, and worn books at local markets, all of which blend seamlessly with the vintage story I'm telling. Thrifting allows us to extend the life of beautiful old pieces, and when chosen with intention, they can feel like they've always belonged. To keep the home functional, I mixed in modern items with a vintage twist. A new sofa with a linen slipcover pairs with an old lace throw. My open shelves are from IKEA but styled with antique glass. Farmcore isn't about pretending to live in the past. It's about honoring it while still living comfortably in the now. With every pairing I asked, would Granny smile at this? And that's how I knew I was on the right track. Every corner of this home now tells a story, not just of Farmcore aesthetics, but of family, history, and love. Granny's handwriting on the walls, her fabrics under my hands, her apron fluttering in the breeze. They all whisper pieces of her life into my daily routine. That's the beauty of this style. It's not just visual, it's deeply emotional. It's slow living with a purpose, full of heart and memory. If you're inspired to create your own Farmcore home with vintage family treasures, start small. Display a handwritten recipe, frame a fabric swatch, or use an old picture as a vase. Group items by tone and theme to avoid clutter. Layer textures, mix eras, and embrace imperfections. The charm comes from the wear, the story, and the love behind each piece. Let your home become a living scrapbook of the people who came before you. You don't need a massive budget to bring this look to life. I spent less than $150 on thrift store editions because most of the magic came from what I already had. Granny's beautiful pieces. Look in attics, family basements, or your own storage bins. Often the sweetest decor is right under your nose, just waiting for a second life in your space. With some love, even the oldest piece can feel fresh again. Farmcore isn't just visual, it's sensory. I added lavender sachets from Granny's linen drawer into my closets, and I play soft acoustic or vintage jazz in the background. The scent of rosewater and the tick of her old clock fill the space with peace. These small touches wrap the whole home in atmosphere. They don't cost much but make the world of difference in how your space feels. At its core, this video isn't just a home makeover. It's a tribute. Granny was gentle, joyful, and endlessly creative. Through these vintage pieces, I feel closer to her than ever. Styling this home in her spirit has been one of the most meaningful projects I've ever done. It reminds me that beauty is found in the slow, the simple, and the sentimental. When I compare the before and after, I see more than just a prettier space. I see a home filled with heart. Cold corners now feel warm. Blank walls now tell stories. Unused items now serve purpose. This transformation wasn't just about Farmcore style. It was about weaving family history into everyday life. And I hope you can feel that transformation too. In a fast-paced world filled with trends and constant change, Farmcore offers something radical: slowness, softness, and connection. By styling with vintage treasures, we make space for the past while nurturing the present. This home isn't perfect, but it's perfectly filled with love. And that, more than anything, is what decorating should be about. Thank you so much for joining me on this heartfelt journey through my Farmcore transformation using Granny's sweetest vintage pieces. I hope you leave inspired to style your own space with sentiment and soul. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment below. Tell me which vintage moment spoke to you the most. Until next time, keep creating homes that feel like hugs.